Chapter 1. The tide brings her back. The ocean was the first to greet her. Even before the bus wheezed its final breath at Seokhwa station, Seo Ji-eun herded the waves, restless and insistent, crashing against the jagged cliffs that lined her childhood home. They carried with them the scent of salt and something older, something buried. Mist drifted past the window, thick and silver, as if the town itself was reluctant to be seen all at once. She hadn't set foot in Seokhwa in 10 years. Her fingers tightened around the frayed leather strap of her satchel as the bus creaked to a halt. As the door hissed open, Ji-eun hesitated, eyes drinking in the familiar coastline, before stepping down onto the gravel with the slow grace of someone exhuming a memory. Rain met her like a whisper rather than a storm, soft but persistent. The town hadn't changed much. Seokhwa was still suspended in that quiet, timeless space, where waves ruled the rhythm of the day, and shadows moved with the fog. Roofs sagged under the weight of moss, paint peeled from shuttered shops, and the sea's breath seemed to seep through every cobblestone crack. An old man, wrapped in a wool coat, glanced up from his jangi board by the station entrance. His eyes squinted in the drizzle, recognition blooming slowly. "Seo Ji-eun?" he murmured, more to himself than to her. She offered no reply and walked on, the wheels of her suitcase rattling behind her, collecting curious stares. Home was a 10-minute walk from the station, up a winding slope, and past the weather-beaten post office. The gate, once a cheery blue, now hung askew on its rusted hinges. Ji-eun pushed it open with some effort, stepping onto a path littered with damp leaves and forgotten time. The house stood as it always had, 2 stories of chipped paint and quiet defiance. The windows were shut tight, like eyes that no longer wished to see. Inside, it smelled of wood rot and lavender sachets, long faded. White sheets covered the furniture like shrouds, preserving the silhouettes of a life interrupted. She didn't bother turning on the lights. Instead, she walked slowly through the rooms, fingers trailing along the dust-soft edges of chairs and cabinets. Everything was as she remembered, and yet smaller, hollowed out. In the kitchen, a kettle still sat on the stove, as if waiting for one last use. Ji-eun pulled the sheet from the dining table and sat. Outside, the rain continued its gentle percussion against the roof. She let her thoughts wander to the day of the funeral, her shoes soaked through, her fingers stiff around a folded umbrella. People had whispered, of course. They always did in Seokhwa. About her mother walking alone near the lighthouse that night. About how the waves had taken her. But Ji-eun had seen the bruises, the scratch behind her mother's ear, the broken fingernail. They had called it an accident. She never had. Something slid through the door slot. She rose and picked up a folded letter, droplets smudging the ink. It was from Bae Young-sik, her editor at the Seokhwa Chronicle. A note of welcome and an assignment. Cover the town's economic downturn, with a particular eye on the Moon family's new revitalization campaign. Keep it neutral, he wrote. The Moons didn't like surprises. She laughed bitterly. They never had. Night came early in Seokhwa. The fog thickened and the street lamps flickered to life, casting long shadows that twisted with the sea breeze. Ji-eun left the house, wrapped in her mother's old trench coat, and made her way toward the market square. She passed the shuttered photo studio where her mother had worked for a year, and the tiny bookstore that had once let Ji-eun read for hours in the corner, without ever asking her to buy a thing. The owner was gone now. Most people were. At the square, stalls stood half-filled, the scent of grilled fish mingling with the sting of rain on iron. She kept her head down until a bulletin board caught her eye. A wanted poster, cheaply printed, showed a man's blurry face. But what stood out was the authority listed below it. Moon Conglomerate Security Division. Not the police. Not the city. The Moon family. They had always run Seokhwa like their private estate, but now it was official. She wondered how deep their roots had grown while she was away. She wandered until her legs ached, then returned home and unearthed a photograph from the drawer beside her mother's bed. It was taken at the base of the lighthouse. Her mother stood there, beaming, her hand resting on the arm of a man whose face had been carefully torn away. Ji-eun traced the torn edge with her thumb. The lighthouse again. She didn't sleep. Instead, she waited until the town went quiet, and the fog thickened enough to feel like a curtain. Then she pulled on boots, grabbed a flashlight, and walked the old path to the cliffs. The sea was louder here, angrier. The wind pulled at her coat and hair, but she kept going. The lighthouse loomed ahead, dark and lifeless. She approached the railing where the land ended and stared down into the frothing black. It was here. Here that they said her mother had slipped. Here that the waves had swallowed her whole. "Tell me what happened," Ji-eun whispered, her voice caught in the wind. "I know you didn't fall." Lightning split the sky. For an instant, the entire cliffside lit up in stark silver. Ji-eun's breath caught. There, near the lighthouse, a silhouette, watching. She turned, heart pounding. But when the light faded, there was nothing, only mist, and the sea, roaring louder than ever.